Good morning, everybody. John Sfiocla here for GAI Insights, bringing you the Gen AI news briefing, rating top news essential, important, or optional. Putting time in your day and thoughts in your mind. It's great to have you here. We have Ashish Bhatia,
Yeah,
a friend of the firm and someone who's working at Microsoft. Luda, you know his complete title.
Yeah, he is the principal product manager working on the AI builder in the Power Platform for Microsoft. It's really a
Wonderful.
very important effort at Microsoft. So, welcome, Ashish.
Yes,
thank you
we're
so much.
delighted to have you. Thank you so much for joining. All
Good to be
righty.
back.
So today, Ankaj, start us off with
Yes,
this nice long read from Sequoia.
yes, John. So the first one that we have for today talks about the evolution of Gen AI since last year or a few months and how we are trending towards agentic systems.
All right. Yeah, and it lays out the different layers in the stack and, basically where they think the market power is. What did you think of this one, Luna?
I rated this article as important, maybe essential. Let's discuss it. Right. So, they essentially lay the groundwork for the agentic reasoning era. Remember, we talked about the reasoning, and O1 or Strawberry from OpenAI is the first of these systems. And then the article goes on to suggest that this is just the beginning and it will be followed by the application semantic reasoning structures. So, Ankash, if you could scroll down to the place where they have three layers, down, down, down. Here. So they essentially they are saying that LLMs is the basic LLMs is the bottom layer. It's a pre-trained layer, right? And then it's the basic reasoning layer that that will be done with agentic systems and when the LLM will stop and think. And then it would be followed by application specific cognitive architectures that would include maybe the semantic tree and the like, semantic knowledge of the specific application. And that's where the power will come. So that I find very important read for strategy and the like in enterprises. So yeah, important article.
All right, important from Luda. Ashish, you have a dog in the hunt here in terms of where you
Absolutely.
think the value added is. Where do you think it is?
Um, I think a couple of fundamental things that are interesting with O1 release. As Luda said, right, previous models were these pre-trained models, which have learned everything about the information age that we have, uh, and they just reproduce that. With the reasoning, now we have the capability that models can do their own independent chain of thought and come up with a reasoned answer. It also means they're using inference time compute. So they're not just generating the token or the next token, but they can go back propagate, right? They can reason back if their path that they are charting is leading to the right outcome or not, right? Which is super important because this is an important ingredient towards the agentic future. So again, if you see, we have fundamentals of agentic future being shown. We saw GPTs from OpenAI at some point of time, which are these task-oriented things or agents. But now you have this reasoning. If you merge them together, then we go to a place where we can build agents for everything.
Yeah.
So essential article, in my opinion, something that leaders should definitely pay attention to. One of the other things in the article is it talks about what happens to SaaS, right? So what's the future of SaaS, right? Again, if you're a SaaS company, this is something that you want to be reading and paying attention to.
Yeah, that's very interesting. It has a little bit of a VC slant. Sequoia is a VC, right? A venture capitalist. So at the end, but it's a very also interesting perspective.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Sequoia, amazingly successful company, investment company. And then I don't know if you showed Akash the performance of first the model training time and then inference training time on performance. I got the two graphs there were pretty interesting.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, well, back there you go, right there. Yeah, so it's interesting. So we have train time compute on a log scale. And then we have test time compute on a log scale. I thought this was fascinating in terms of what the dynamics are, and then how this will interact with model architectures. We get a little bit to model merge and so forth on another page. But so Kevin says essential. I was going to go essential. Paul, are you going to be a stick in the mud, or are we going essential on this?
I'll go essential as well. She's good to see you. Yeah, no, I think it's really important development here, and I think particularly as event AI leaders start moving into, we saw in our conference this week, 2025 planning, which is really starting to think about what is my IT infrastructure for the next 2 or 3 years. This is important input into that discussion.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. We start off with an essential. Woo! All right. Akash, what's next?
The next one comes from Walmart, and it talks about how Walmart is using multiple AI models and their new Vellaby LLM, and it is using a tool called Element to navigate through those different LLMs.
Yeah, amazing. Here we have the world's largest retailer. You know, it's just to keep the scale of Walmart, in mind. I believe it's true that Walmart's revenues are bigger than 2/3 of the GDP of Australia. And this thing is a country; it's not a company. Anyway, so
there's noise on the line, guys. John.
John, is your microphone moving around, maybe? Or
let me try. I'll mute you.
Yeah, we have a switch on this one.
Yeah, so I read this article. When I started reading, I was super hopeful about the article because the promise is amazing, right? Walmart sits on a ton of enterprise data, and they're no strangers to AI, and they've done a ton of AI in past as well. But what I was kind of a little bit taken aback or disappointed was there's early days in testing of this Volby model, and they're saying they are going to release it sometime in future next year. They didn't also specify what scenarios and use cases will it unlock. But one of the important things that I read in the article was around Walmart using this multi-layer, multi-model approach, which is super interesting because again, the future is not one model, right? It'll be models trained by you, trained by others, taken off the shelf, and all of them come together to realize some larger enterprise line of business goals. So that is super interesting. I'm going to talk about elements. It's how they kind of pick models for a given task. We call it kind of model routing based on the given task. You pick the appropriate model to do the task, or in future, you can think of pick the appropriate agent to do the task. So that is kind of important in my opinion. But other than that, it feels like the Volby announcement is a little bit more futuristic, not ready yet, under testing, and the scenarios are unclear.
All right, so we have an optional article here.
Yeah, I thought it would be an optional.
All righty, we're going optional. Luda, you okay with that?
Yeah, it's interesting but optional. Agree.
Paul?
Yeah, definitely optional. I do. It's interesting. Walmart is really pushing more into this. Hopefully, it's part of their attraction AI talent. I did post on LinkedIn yesterday. One of their senior execs talked about the search bar is no longer the fastest way to purchase, which I think showing you that they're really starting to think about online purchase and competing with Amazon, how that whole dynamic's changing.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and yes, I think as you said, Ashish, just think of the data they have. Everything from not just sales data and things like that, but just people walking in the stores and the flow and everything. It's just wild. Kevin's also in agreement here that we're looking at a multi-model future. So, all right, optional, but we'll keep an eye on Walmart. Next, Akash.
Okay, the next one comes from Boston Consulting Group, and it talks about the 5 must-haves for effective AI upskilling.
Yeah, I thought this is an area that clearly we at GAI Insights believe in deeply, which is organizational capability. We have our little model, our EAT model: educate, apply, transform, and this notion of upskilling. And if you go down the 5 upskilling success factors, I think it's not bad. If you just scroll through those, Ankash, should be great. So you've got, this notion of C-suite involvement, and sure, you assess what you need. If you go to the next one, and then they have the different levels, where you're learning all the way, preparing people for change. Go ahead, next one. Yeah, unlock, this is, we talk about funding the rebels. Here's unlocking the employees' willingness to learn. C-suite priority. We always talk about how the C-suite needs to have, hands-on use, and AI for AI upskilling. So this notion of amplifying, or what we called at our conference, intelligence leveragers, I think is so I would give it an important, I think it's pretty well argued, pretty well researched. I wouldn't make it essential, like I think the Sequoia thing was, because it's, but for the interested reader, it's not a bad layout. There's parts of this that you could take the words AI out and stick in any, technology or change or movement. So, there's a certain amount of it that's just general or familiar territory of getting a large organization to change. But I didn't think it was bad. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think in the era of labor shortages in AI, and trying to understand how to move the whole enterprise forward in AI, this is an important article, I think. But it's interesting. It's general, as you point out, John, but yet many companies are still struggling of how to do this, really, and jumping into piloting things that are not differentiated, and only in the very small side of the company. So it's very important to kind of keep getting this message out.
One of the things that I wanted to mention was, and honestly, coming into the GAI world earlier this week, this was kind of blind spot for me. Like, coming from technology company, we assume people are aware of this. This is something which is pervasive and people understand this very well. But one of my key takeaway from the conference was education, enablement, upskilling is as much of a problem as with, again, technology focus for large companies should be. So again, key message that you delivered, John, was that EAT framework, and the very starting point of it is education. Yeah. And this kind of underpins that element of upskilling of workforce, upskilling of C-suite, right, is super important to ride this wave. So
all right. We're landing on the important carrier here, or the important runway on the carrier.
Yeah, I would. It's just a really challenging problem here. One of the companies at our, I don't want to use a name, at our conference, they have more than 20,000 employees. They have 1,000 people with Microsoft Copilot. It's, how we can't even afford Copilot for all of them. And I think we've seen again and again, and having a Copilot without training doesn't work. So, how do you actually get instructor level training to get these benefits? So finding the right calibration of ROI to unlock, and a budget owner from that, and a management team that's willing to support it, it is a real challenge, particularly for larger organizations here. So, but I do think it's a really important thing here. I think that one thing we see a lot on is the importance of, on the justification side, on employee attraction and retention. And John, I don't want to use the name, but you and I talked to their super large fast food company that recently celebrated going to ChatGPT lockdown internally, and they're going the opposite way, and we're getting resumes from that organization here. So finding the right balance to invest, upskill, and still meet your quarterly targets is a non-trivial task.
That it is. All right. We're going important on this one, Akash. Next.
The next one is a research paper which talks about what matters for model merging at scale.
Yeah, very interesting. How this, I mean, when you think of, remember back to those two graphs in the Sequoia thing, you think about the time spent training, if you can get the benefit of merging those together, taking those modules or different models and so forth, it's quite an important domain. Ludo, what'd you think of this one?
It's actually a shish.
Oh, it's Rajesh.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I took a look at this article. I did a brief read of it. It's a detailed paper. Couple of things that come to mind is model merge is super interesting. One of the things they talk about upfront is this ability to do decentralized model development and then being able to merge it to a more generalized, higher capability model than the sum of the parts. So that's super interesting. But what this specific paper talks about is ability to merge larger models, right? And that creates a bunch of efficiency. Some of that is, for example, merging consistently improves generalization capabilities of larger models. It's easier to merge larger models. And then the expert model that emerges has more emergent capabilities than the sum of the parts. So interesting paper that I feel for an IT leadership or C-suite leadership, this is too detailed. It's a more technical paper. Something for CIOs to take a look at it, data science leadership to look at it.
So maybe an important, because important is still not required reading, but certainly worthwhile if you make the time.
Paying attention.
Yeah, it's interesting. This to me has completely counterintuitive findings. It wouldn't be clear to me at all that the model improvement would be greater when you put together large models than when you put together small models. My intuition would have been exactly the opposite. That the relative improvement when you put small models together. I guess this continues with the truth is different from my thinking, which is I did not expect that the large models would continue to be superior in lots of domains compared to the small models. I really had, I guess, kind of a brick by brick kind of mentality about the creation of knowledge, and this is very different and very different dynamics. Has much stronger emergent properties, much more generalizability. It's really, I think it's profound what we're finding here.
Yeah, I can back important, but I question what would the leaders do with it. It's really for awareness only. They're not going to merge large language models and go different formulas on the weight combination. So I think it's important to know, but optional for the day-to-day.
Yeah, the only thing, Luda, that would put it, well, two things, I think. First of all, I think this is a massive trend that not that many people are paying attention to. I think this is going to be one of those things along with chips that are going to drive a whole improvement factor that's going to develop, especially when you get lots of models.
John, you're losing your voice.
John, we are
Your
losing
speaker's
you.
going in and out again. Microphone.
I hope, is that better? No? Yeah. I think that this is going to be a trend for performance in 2025. And as we saw Ramesh at our event from MIT, he's talking about, the edge models and so forth. I think this model merging thing is going to be big. And the only reason that it would be of concern right now, I think, Luda, for the day-to-day executive is that as they think about their supply base, who they're getting models from, how they think about their multi-model strategy, this is going to be, I think, one of the critical economic drivers of performance and consumption of tokens and so forth. So that's why.
John, now that you mentioned this, right, remember Ramesh's presentation about the GAI AI, which was decentralized AI. And I think this touches a little bit upon that, right? That you can build smaller decentralized model where the training cost is kind of more manageable for large enterprises, and being able to merge those models to get these higher level capabilities. So again, from that perspective, very interesting.
Yeah, and I think that when you think about just budgets inside large organizations, what they call maverick AI or rogue spend or whatever, that's from the point of view of the CIO. right? Now I can justify it. I can say, I'm running a division and I want to have something built, and say, hey, look, we can merge it later.
Yeah.
No,
No,
let me.
I agree that going back to Sequoia, the lower level,
Yeah.
pick right model is a very good. How do you do that? And this paper just gives some insight into these like what's the weights, what's the performance. Yeah, from that perspective, it's important.
All righty, Paul. You any big objections? So important on this one?
Not in this one. Great conversation.
All righty, important it is. And I got to pick up the pace a little here as moderator. We're 20 minutes in and we've only done a couple. Schneider Electric, Ankash.
So this one talks about how Schneider Electric is using Amazon Bedrock to identify high potential business opportunities.
All right, Luda, what do you think of this one?
It is an interesting use case. I rated it as optional. But if it was a couple of years ago, I think we would have rated it almost essential because it's really a good use case. So what Schneider Electric is doing is they are in the mini grids business and they have products. And so they need to screen those RFPs that are coming from SMEs all over the place. And they're very complex, very detailed, and very long. And they need to pick the ones that work for their business to expand revenue. So this, they used Bedrock, I think, Sonnet, Bedrock as an architecture, and Sonnet as an LLM to do that, and with great results. So great case, good explanation, but really optional, unless you need a case for your board or something. Yeah, then it's important.
All right, we got an optional here. Paul, Ashish, what do you think?
The only case for important for me, Luda, here was, again, it's an implementation of LLM at a large enterprise and some core kind of fundamental use case that they are trying to unlock with this. So from an implementation perspective, it actually puts words into action, right? Or this promise of AI into action. So that, again, just from that standpoint, I feel it's an important article on how LLMs are helping Schneider Electric achieve this objective.
Yeah, no, I agree. Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm actually agreeing with Ashish on the one. I think on the importance. I think one, AWS, I think is doing a really good job of showing details of all these case studies they've been coming out in the last 3 or 4 months. I think the second is, I think one real thing I learned this week at the conference was that the visionaries need frameworks and ideas, but the next set of early majority adopters need examples. And they really they judge themselves on where this market is based on examples with companies like me. And this is a really good, large traditional company using this new technology with lots of details. So important in my view.
Yeah, we also have the fact that it's munching down RFPs with graphics and functional drawings.
Yeah.
Which is a thing that I know a lot of organizations face. I'm on the board of a company that faces this, and it's a real issue, and if you can do this, when you think about the order management process in these complex organizations, this is a vital part of it, and it's usually quite difficult to traverse efficiently and then have a response. And in our sales seminars, this is a big thing, right? Can you take an RFP, turn it around, and give a good offer back? So I'm starting to feel like it might even be essential. It's a good example. It's a particular example of a complex thing that a lot of companies have that hasn't been really completely solved by the text-to-text models so far.
Yeah, and John, maybe too, at least important, there is a semantic layer that they built. So effectively, they built a tree of knowledge of this, what they're looking for,
Right.
and how to read these RFPs and the like. And it's not a shabby undertaking; it's a very serious undertaking. And so,
Yeah.
combination of RAG, vectors, a lot of memory and then semantic trees went into that. So I think says let's, and what you're saying from the
Yeah.
vision, Maybe we put it important or maybe essential.
Essential it is. All right, we're going for essential on this one. Woo-hoo. Got 2 E's. All right, next. Last article coming up.
Okay, the last one talks about how neuromania is transforming ABA therapy with Llama 3.1.
Yes, my daughter actually taught in an autistic school, a school for autistic children for some time. I forget what ABA stands for, but it is the gold standard in terms of one whole philosophy of dealing with autism. And she was, qualified in it and so forth. And it's the school she was at is in Southborough, Mass, and anyway, my nephew is severely autistic, and so I've had a little bit of exposure to different modalities, and this is quite impressive. This ABA method. This particular article I was going to give as optional. It's a short article. It talks about doing ABA planning with neuromia. So interesting application in terms of a niche application, but not a lot of detail, and certainly important work for the audience that needs to worry about that. So I was going to give this an option.
ABA stands for Applied Behavior Analysis
Thank you.
Therapy. And the article also talks about the great burnout of the folks that deal with these, and it's pretty high level expertise that's required, and this is certainly a help.
Yes. Yeah. But would you still rate it optional, Luda, or important?
Yeah. It's a very narrow application, but good for Meta that they are promoting this open source use cases, which is wonderful.
Yeah,
that's one thing that I wanted to underscore, right? This is the power of open source, that it enables everybody to kind of go after things that are important to them, which otherwise would not be possible with kind of closed models. You'd be paying ton to get there.
Yes, I do want to keep in mind that Meta is kind of modified open source. You know what I mean? It's still it's open source the way Apple was open source, giving away its computers to educational institutions. You know what I mean? It's
free download.
Yeah, free download, and and you look at some of the deals they've done, for the Zuckerberg Chan Institute. My understanding is, I don't know in detail, they're getting first in line access to data on the back of that. So it's not all. It's philanthropy with a hook.
Luda, what a downer. We're solving autism here, and he's bringing in the reality commercialism.
It's just whatever. Hey, I do want to note something that our friends from Colaberry said in terms of when we're talking about the model stuff, they've been testing small language models for specific use cases here, and this is super important. I think non-GPU hardware, way cheaper, fast. That's why I say model merging, I think, is going to be a big thing. Model merging in a weird way is kind of semantic interoperability, if you want to, think of it that way, I think. And so that's going to be massive as people chase down with these downloadable models. It's going to be a big area. So thank you, Colbert. Good, helpful contribution here. Ankash, where are we on the big top board?
Coming right away, John.
All righty. Here we go. A couple essentials important, couple optionals. We got a lot of runs in this baseball game here. All right. We have a lovely. I think that this for me is a set of examples that are really pretty rich. I mean, you think about the Schneider. That's cross domains, and you can't get it wrong in the stuff they're building, or stuff burns down or people get electrocuted. So that's kind of cool. You've got the overall look at the industry from Sequoia, and then there's a set of things important in terms of the must-haves and how do you merge at scale. Think about it. I might even make those essential, but we're not going to inflate the grades here late. So, any announcements or anything, Ashish? Anything that our audience should hear from you?
It's always a pleasure to be here.
Great, Luda. Anything?
Just happy Friday, and I think it's incumbent on us to put out all these insights we've heard from the companies. I think they were super cool from the conference, Paul.
Yes.
We're working hard on that. Lots of short videos coming out, and Monday's Learning Lab is Rosemary is going to give us update on her AI adoption survey. I think she's had 700 companies, and it'll be another good calibration of where the market is in terms of how making all these great ideas real in companies.
Yeah. I want to thank all of the Kevin, Vivek, Ram, all of our contributors online. This is really making the discussion real time and interesting. So thanks. And Ashish, thanks for joining.
Kunal, good question about the Tesla Robovan Cybercab. We'll get to that on Monday, and that should be an interesting discussion. Yeah, I just want to say thanks, everybody. Thank you so much, Ashish. And the one thing that I think probably the biggest thing that I learned from our event this week is that we thought that this adoption was going to happen quickly. It's happening more quickly than even I think of myself as an optimist in this thing. It's just amazing. I mean, you see it in the BCG data, you see it in the Sequoia stuff. I mean, people are taking this and really pushing forward to improve their businesses. Yes, I agree, Kevin. Thank you. Luna, educational as always. Okay, not an academic exercise.
Happy
Bye,
Friday,
everybody.
everyone.
Take care.
Like us on YouTube.
Yeah, and subscribe to the letter. Send it to everyone.